From Little Mountain Sound in Vancouver, British Columbia, this is Lab Notes. And now here's your host, Russ Hamilton.
Hello again. Welcome to Lab Notes. I am your host, Russ Hamilton, breathing. Good. At the end of every workshop we do, part of the homework participants are given is to practice when the stakes are low, to stay connected with your cohort. And if you need some backup or have any questions about the communications practice, reach out to me. I want to open this episode by re-extending that invitation. If you're still working out what it means to feel seen and heard in the world, if you have questions about how to apply the practice, or if you just need a little distraction from the chaos, the weirdness, you can email me at russ@connectionlaboratory.com or call me at 646-780-9946. Let's have a chat. Totally. Our subject on the show today is learning. We have two guests whose specialty is learning, but with rather different takes and different missions. If you've done more than one module of Connection Lab, a common question we ask participants is, what do you remember about the last workshop experience? I'm quick to say that this is not a test. It's fine if the answer is you don't remember anything about our last workshop experience. We like to ask about what people remember because it's a chance to bring up how we actually learn anything. Think about it for a moment. What do you know? And how did you learn it? Immersion? Repetition? Conscious pursuit? Unfortunate accident? How do we learn as individuals? How do we learn as a community or as a business? Chances are the business you run, the people in it, need to get better at a variety of competencies. How do you diagnose a challenge? And then how do you decide what you want to get better at because of it? So much of our work revolves around raising our unconscious practice to consciousness without judgment or correction, and then deciding what we want to get better at. We say it like it's easy, but this simple set of questions can be quite a hike. As you listen to these conversations, I invite you to consider how you learn and what you learn. Let's introduce our first guest. He is the CEO of Kaskada, a company on the leading edge of machine learning. Specifically, they build behavioral machine learning models from event-based data. I'll let him tell you more about that. He's also a family man. He's learning how to sail. He's got a lot going on. Please welcome to the program, Davor Bonaci. First of all, how are you? Are you okay? Is the family okay?
Yeah, so, things are generally okay. Things at the company are okay.
How's everybody doing at the organization? Are people generally healthy and happy?
People are doing well. We are going to a bunch of events, right? Like what we, worked on last time was more around creating content.
Yes.
Right, and creating stories and talking about how to build a story arc from the beginning to the end. And, we have, I think, given 5 events in the last 6 weeks.
Wow. Like trade shows and...
Yep. Like Brian has run a 3-hour workshop on Monday. Sharna spoke for half an hour on Tuesday. And today is just Wednesday. Right? So these things are kind of happening. And so people are doing good.
Can we talk about your Connection Lab experience?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to remember. We met, how did we meet? We met through...
Eric.
Right. Eric Pinzer?
Yeah.
Amazing. We love Eric. And he recommended Connection Lab and me and us to you. And you were, of course, welcoming and inviting and a bit skeptical.
I was skeptical?
Yes. Is that not your memory? That? Well, and maybe you have a different memory. I just remember you and I having really good conversation about what are we going to do and what is the value of this, and because everybody's time is so important.
I'd say that I was not skeptical.
Oh,
I asked, people for how can we invest in us, and Eric, it was not that I don't believe in these things. I believe in things. I was just doing my due diligence, I guess.
Fantastic. Well, yeah. I just know the journey you took, because among the last conversations we had was a very impassioned, lovely conversation about the value of the work and how the team showed up. And
Yeah.
Just thought it was amazing. But that was quite a journey from our first workshop to our last in-person experience. What do you remember about workshop 1? Or because we did workshop 1, module 1 and 2 in the same day.
Yeah. So I remember you beating me up. You know.
Well, you know, these things happen.
These things happen, but that's what people remember first, right? You know, how you made them feel, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the first thing that I have, but I felt very good. You were able to get people to open up. You got, and fundamentally you helped me, right? And so maybe think of it this way. Like many times when I think about myself, it's a lot about culture, right? Like I was not born here, and culturally, we do not put emphasis on feelings or it's more like, what is this crap, right? Like it's much more, tell me what this is about. Tell me the facts. And culturally, when you think about any, European country, especially central towards eastern part of Europe, there is we don't talk about how we feel. We don't do any of these things. And so, kind of, when I think about my journey, right, these are the things that, before last few years, I was never doing. And the society would tell me that none of these things are appropriate to do. And so, over the last decade or more, I've been growing in this way. And that's why I like to go last or avoid these things, right? Right when things are happening, because it's just it's hard.
Yeah.
And you were able to, in a couple hours, on multiple occasions, get people to open up, to be creative, and to fundamentally learn.
Yeah.
And then to connect. And that's, I think, is super great. And especially now, when everything is remote, we still don't have the office, where we don't see each other, right? Like the impact of these things is tremendous.
Amazing. What do you remember about taking the stage with what you want your leadership legacy to be, and standing out on the deck in the hotel and facing your group and connecting with them, or not?
Yeah, so that is when you beat me up. So that was hard for me. Number one, it was hard for me because of my role and the way I show up in a right, like you can't, as a leader, you can't distinguish, we are now, I am just a participant just like you. I don't get an ability ever, legally or otherwise, to take the hat off. And so it was hard for me, because if I say something that is there are consequences, right? Like people will say that I said it, that the CEO said it, and these are not my values and whatnot.
Right.
And so it comes down to what are my personal values, what are the values of Kaskada, and how they relate to each other.
So let the record show that it's challenging and nerve-wracking, and you've got to be careful. And were you careful? And what happened?
I was careful. You wanted me to be less careful, I think.
I'm a rebel.
Right. But it was great. I truly think it was great. what was the reaction of people was very, very good.
Yeah, it really was. Because they were a bit hard on you at times too. The first time you did your read through, you got some, shall we say, feedback.
Yes, but I mean, I wanted to be done, or I wanted to go through it, rather quickly, and they wanted more.
But they gave you great feedback. And now then you did it a second time.
Yep, I did.
And you prioritized connecting with the audience over the content.
Yes.
And then the feedback went through the roof.
Yep.
And then you and I had a conversation after that. Like, what's up with that?
Indeed.
And then we did module 2 the same day.
Yeah.
Call to action and demand. Now that the audience feels seen and heard, can we turn making demands on each other trust-building experiences instead of trust-diminishing ones? What scene did you do?
The Goodwill Hunting one.
Oh, right. Do you remember your demands? Do you remember your scene partner?
I remember my scene partner. It was more like let me be, or like go somewhere, or something. Right. Like realize your potential versus let me be.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes. Yeah. And did any other performances stand out for you as you watch your teams perform these scenes and emphasize calls to action and demands on each other?
No, I liked all of them. I mean, out of all movies, the Wolf from Wall Street or something, the Wall Street one, I don't know.
Wall Street,
yeah. Was I like that movie, so that was the one that I remember the most.
Yeah.
Because of the movie itself, but there are plenty, like all of them were quite good.
And the most recent module we did was storytelling. That was our first in-person workshop at Connection Lab in 2.5 years down in Seattle. And it was absolutely magnificent to be in the same room with your people who were just so passionate and so invested and took such good care of each other.
I concur.
What was the takeaway from the storytelling experience?
I mean, everything we do ultimately comes down to how well we are able to communicate it, right? You can do great work, but if you're unable to communicate it, it will not make an impact. And so I think, focusing on communicating it well is critical to success. And I think, unlocking the next level of influence in any industry depends on being able to communicate it effectively.
Yes.
And in the same way the storytellers are doing it in the movies, it is probable that the same type of skills or the same type of engagement is needed in technical content or beneficial in technical content too.
Yes.
And I think we all can learn from that. And there are people who do this better. There are people who can learn from it, and when the entire company goes through it, I think we become better communicators.
Has that shown up in the new events that you're doing as you continue to market Kaskada? Are the stories you are telling about the organization changing, shifting, improving?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer, directly. We certainly spent a lot of time recently building all kinds of presentations, decks, and the like.
Yep.
And it is very likely that has come in, that the various thinking about the story arc and how the audience will react and how to keep them engaged has come up.
Yeah. Excellent. We're talking to Davor Bonaci, the CEO of Kaskada. So what is Kaskada trying to get better at these days? What competencies is the organization trying to get better at?
So many things. I just don't know where to start from this angle. I think organizationally, I think when I think about last 2 years, since the COVID hit, I think the first 6 months was easy.
Yeah.
And then the second 6 months was terrible, or hard, or difficult, right? After we spent the credit built before COVID, right? We spent it through the first 6 months, and then the difficulty began. And we had to change a lot to operate in this world. And, in the second year of COVID, we have figured out how to do it. And so I think we are working well today. And that we have figured out how to work well remotely and effectively. We have found repeatable patterns that work around, offsites and doing different things at different times. And I think it has worked quite well for us. I do think that we will have the next set of issues with the next, scaling factor. I think we will have to unlock some new things there. But for the time being, at the current scale, things seems to be working. We are moving rather quickly. We do want to get better. I think more around the content and kind of make sure we focus on influence in the industry as much as we focus on building.
You're at the forefront, Kaskada's at the forefront of machine learning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of an extraordinary field to be in, especially from a layman out in the bleachers kind of watching. So it's interesting. Is your learning and the organizational learning similar to the product and how machines learn? And is there parallel?
There are all kinds of learning algorithms. We tend to focus on building behavioral machine learning models from event-based data.
Yep.
And those models tend to be on a more perhaps simpler side. The algorithm itself, the difficulty tends to be, the data that you feed it.
Right.
And so those algorithms are kind of, I guess, more easier to intuitively understand, but it's all about the quality of the data that you feed it and how you feed it. And then, humans learn slightly differently, I think. I think we learn, ideally through mistakes of others, but more frequently through mistakes of our own. Though there are more machine learning algorithms that are less supervised and more perhaps reinforcement learning or others that are trying things out and seeing what happens.
Right. I love that you're in the learning business and that you're practicing learning all the time.
Yeah.
What are you trying to get better at these days? Sailing.
Oh, sailing.
That counts.
That absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking.
I believe you.
I'd say, generally always kind of scaling myself and building and processes that can happen without me in the loop.
Amazing. Making yourself obsolete.
Yes. Right. And so that's, that's always, I guess, the goal. And when certain things are figured out, then you can do that. And it's more difficult before certain things are figured out. And so and as soon as you do one thing, the next thing comes.
Yeah.
And so it feels like a forever struggle to solve the problem and be able to delegate it.
Right.
Infinite cycle.
Do you think a lot of is your mission to make yourself obsolete, is that industry specific? Do other CEOs feel the same way? Could we all learn a little bit from that objective?
Oh, I think there are all kinds of leaders and all kinds of CEOs, and I don't think there are people that have leaders that have hands in everything. right? Like, and it's certainly successful for many of them in various ways. And who are we to judge? And so I do attempt to delegate as much as I can. And, but I do think there is also a time when you can delegate and a time when you cannot. There's also mistakes that can be made when things are delegated too early, before things are figured out, because it's really hard to figure out actually to whom to delegate it to, and what's the right profile of a person you need for the particular delegation task.
Yeah.
Right. And so figuring those things out is not always obvious.
Right.
Especially when you're not an expert in a particular area.
Right.
I think when you're an expert and have seen everything there, then delegation tends to be easy. But kind of when you are leading a wide variety of functions, you are not as good in all the functions as you are in others. And it's much harder to figure out what to delegate and to whom in an area that you are not an expert in. Yeah. And I think kind of in leadership, there is like being an expert, being a leader of others in an area that you know everything about. There you have kind of the ability to, you have an unfair advantage because you know everything that's going on, or you've grown from that area or something. And then kind of leading people in other areas that you have not grown through is a different challenge. Yeah. But it's you just have, it's a similar type of problems where you just don't have the inherent unfair advantage. And I think those are, those have to be, mastered. And when mastered, then becomes easier.
Yes. No, my knowledge will always be finite.
Yes.
So I can't know everything. So I have to come to terms.
I think knowledge, if I can, steal this quote from somebody, knowledge is knowing how much you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're a community builder.
I like to think so.
Yeah. I've experienced your community, and I think you should be pleased.
Thank you.
If somebody's interested in Kaskada, what do they do? How do they contact you? Machine learning.
Kaskada.com.
Kaskada.com.
And then, reach out to us. It is about building behavioral machine learning models from activity data, right? From event streams, from transaction streams. When you have kind of activity of some kind that describes this person at this time did that, and you want to build behavioral machine learning models that predict engagement, interest, action, churn, anything about the behavior of a person.
Yeah.
Right. That is a really good, valuable use case. Predicting, lifetime customer value, predicting churn and retention. These types of use cases can be extremely valuable in a business.
Nice. 2 more questions. Are you going to listen to this interview when I release it? Okay.
No, I have never watched a video of myself. Like there's plenty on YouTube or from various conferences.
Yes.
I don't watch any of them.
Fair enough.
I just I'm not going to watch this one either.
Fantastic. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
One of my favorite no's ever.
I mean, I have a million questions. Just it's yeah.
Except maybe when do we get to work together again?
Yes.
Right? That works for me.
That works for me too.
Davor Bonaci, thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to our next engagement. Good luck on the water with your sailing, and best to the family and the community. And I look forward to hearing about great success at Kaskada.
All right. Thank you, Russ.
Davor Bonaci, the CEO of Kaskada, machine learning specialists and sailing student. Hilarious, man. If anyone needs permission to say no more often, Davor is modeling that for you. Very cool.
You're listening to Lab Notes, part of the Connection Lab Network. For more information about our workshops and executive development programs, email us at info@connectionlaboratory.com or go to our website at connectionlaboratory.com.
On this episode of Lab Notes, we're diving deep into the nature of learning, the power of it. Our next guest is Jayme Alston. The company she leads is called BloomTech. It's an e-learning school that is helping people break out of poverty with accessible education in the technology field. BloomTech is changing how education is funded and is making technology education way more affordable. I love this business. I'm going to let her tell you all about it and how her Connection Lab program fits into the picture. Please welcome Jayme Alston. Jayme, welcome to Lab Notes. It's so good to have you on the show. I'm always glad to see you. You are at BloomTech, and your title on LinkedIn says you're the head of people.
That is correct.
I love that.
Happy to be here.
Tell me about BloomTech. Before we go anywhere, what is BloomTech?
Well, this is the perfect time. I'm actually writing an elevator speech for all hands about it. So good time to test that out.
Nice.
But BloomTech is a e-learning school. We're focusing on really changing the shape of poverty. We want to make education accessible for everyone. And in order to do that, we are teaching people how to be developers, full stack, data science, coming out with blockchain, working on Amazon, all of those things in order to make that not a huge college debt. Right now, people are going to school for 4 years and coming out, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. For us, you kind of pay as you go. It is a fraction of the cost, and it is a lot easier for everyone to actually get that type of skill set using our format.
Amazing. Is it a specialized education? Is it a broad education? What kind of education is offered at BloomTech?
Well, we teach full stack development. So it's about 9 months of sorts. We are moving to another platform where it's a little bit more flexible for individuals to join, but we'll teach you full stack development. So you could go out and get a career really once you've finished our program in that. Same thing with Amazon. We're doing the same thing there with backend. We'll be launching blockchain soon. So that'll be our new thing coming up, I believe, in late Q2. So we want to teach people how to get into these tech fields and stay there and make that money. So if you don't want to be a waitress anymore, go to BloomTech.
Amazing. So if somebody's listening and is like, wait, this is really interesting, where should I go? Is it bloomtech.com? Where should somebody go?
There is www.bloomtech.com.
Amazing. Okay. So we'll repeat that at the end. Is it mission-driven business?
That's why we are here. Honestly, the part of the programming that I was literally just typing out was that our job, we showed a map of poverty, I believe it was last year. And we showed exactly where the upward mobility was lacking within the United States. Looking at that and what we do, our charge was to change that. So the places where individuals, who were born in the 80s still are doing the same work, or some of that blue collar work that they were doing, that their parents were doing, and are stuck in that generational gap. We want to be able to effectively change that by giving this education and making it available to anyone. We are all behind that mission. Everybody here wakes up, eats, breathes that mission. We love our learners. We try to make sure we have everything ready for our learners. And we are really great at placing our learners as well into these roles. So it's a great job. I love this job because I can see how we change people.
Excellent. Okay. So how did we meet? We met through our mutual friend, Mark Freim. Tell me about your conversation with him and how did we meet?
Well, Mark was my CPO here at BloomTech for a while.
Yeah.
And we were talking about development and things that I wanted to work on. And he said, I know somebody who would be amazing. And next thing you know, I was connected to Eurus and here I am.
Amazing. And we've done 3 modules and a bunch of coaching. I've sent you the prompt sheet with the 6-box model, which is available on our website at connectionlaboratory.com, the 6-box model, 3 primary questions, 3 primary relationships. What's top of mind for you today on your practice with everything we've done and talked about and all the experiential learning through Connection Lab?
I think it's just continually practicing it. So it's now becoming part of my subconscious, which is good, or I guess it's good, right? Because it's just there. I just feel like you may have molded my brain a little bit. But it is becoming that part. And so I find myself, whether it's at work or at home, asking myself these questions when something just feels off, And so I honestly will sit back and be like, wait, that didn't feel like a proper response. Jayme, what happened here, right? And so I'll stop and I'll sit in the feeling and absorb it and let it pass for me and say, is it interesting? And then ask myself, how did I show up? And then how do I want to show up? And we go through that exercise often.
How have your conversations at work changed? If they have changed?
In a bit, I'm just thinking I am using a little bit of this in my brain as I talk to people.
Yeah, so good. Nice.
Model, and I'm saying to myself, oh, this is how you're showing up in this stressful conversation. But you had a little bit of feedback, and we talk about things. But I think that one of my practices has always been trying to model what I expect of others. I can't ask someone to do something if I'm not willing to do it myself. And so I'm totally mindful that if I'm asking someone, what are your development goals? What are your needs? Which is a normal conversation for me to have on a regular basis in my role. I start that by saying, I have my own. Here's what I'm working on. Here are the things that I'm doing. I've read this book. I'm working with Rust and Connection Lab for X. And so I think starting with that and sharing and what you're doing to help individuals, right, understand, hey, we all have to grow. Nobody's perfect. Oh, wow, she's doing that. Then yeah, I should have no problem with saying I need to work on X, Y, or Z. What I do to counterbalance that now? It's like go backwards sometimes. So, and sometimes the universe just gives me what you need. It just happens, right? So when I was in this space for one activity, I ended up just getting inboxed by and just text messages by a few past coworkers and some past managers and some past leaders that I just didn't expect to hear from. And each of them said something that refuted, right, me feeling like an imposter, like, oh, wait, yeah, that's right, we did do that, And it just, that was my way of kind of, fighting that trigger. And through that happening, again, not because I did it, it was organic. And now I'm going to use that anytime that pops out. I am going to then take a chance and just reach back out to someone that I've worked with in the past and at least start a dialogue. And in that, I do find that, it becomes uplifting and it does leave that behind me where it should be because it's not really who I am.
Okay, 2 more questions.
Sure.
Are you going to listen to this?
Yes.
Are you going to hear? You are good. Oh, I love that quick draw answer right from the holster. Boom.
Absolutely. I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to encourage others to listen to this too.
Fantastic. And do you have any questions for me?
How do you model your box for us?
Well, it's kind of my JOB.
True.
If I'm going to be legitimate at facilitating Connection Lab, I have to be able to answer the question, how do I show up under stress? How do I want to show up under stress? What do I want to get better at in terms of my relationship to myself, my content, and my audience? So Connection Lab is a laboratory that I walk around with me and I change my lenses all the time. I change my predispositions. Because some of them are not flexible and I want to notice those. I want to raise the predispositions that are unconscious to consciousness. And I want to notice them and say, isn't that interesting? Instead of, oh, Russ, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you did that, right? But this is my JOB, is the 6-box model. And in fact, if we go deeper, my job is to break it. Our job is to poke holes in it, sink it. If it's a ship, break it up. Our job is to test it under all conditions to see if in fact it holds. So sometimes my mission is to break it, the 6-box model and the 6 modules of Connection Lab, and to blow them up and to devalue them or to expose them or sink them. And I have not been able to do that yet. And so my work continues.
That was my next question. So have you blown it up before?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting choice when you're facilitating because you're kind of recruiting people to help you blow it up. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the framework of a communication leadership workshop goes from, I have something to teach you and you're going to sit there and listen, and participants rolling their eyes, to, I need you to help me blow this up. And people lean in and say, wait, now what?
Right? You want to do what? Come on.
What do I get to blow up? What are we shooting holes in? What are we sinking? Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm good at wrecking stuff. And I go, fantastic. Show me how you can wreck this. And they take a swing at it, and geez, they just can't hear. Let me change my footing here. Let me take a better swing at it. And they try again and again and again.
Well, that approach is perfect though, because sometimes some people go into these activities and thinking, yeah, that's just malarkey. I've done 8 of these before. This one's not going to be different than the other. So if you go in the lens of, you know what? Let's see if we blow it up. Let's just break this thing, and then they find that they can't. Well, guess what? That means it's a good model. This is going to be a good learning for you because it has its weight, right? You're proving the fact that it works by not being able to blow it up.
I love the idea of trying to break it. And in the process, a byproduct is I actually learned how to connect with my audience. I actually learned to surrender control of things I can't control, like my audience's experience of me. I contribute to it, but I don't control it. Mm-hmm. And in the process of reclaiming that energy that I was putting into trying to control my audience's experience of me, mm-hmm. I actually get more energy. I actually get more time. My relationship to presenting and communication is so much healthier because I don't decide for you. That was false. That responsibility was false.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Nice. Jayme Alston.
Yes.
It's so great to chat with you. I look forward to our next chat. Thank you so much for being on the program, and crush it out there. Let me know if I can be of further service.
I sure will. It was great. And, would love to come back again. So
fantastic. Oh, show me your tattoo. You got to,
yeah.
Every time we meet now, I love, there it is.
Oh, it's getting better now. You can see it on the camera a bit.
Nice. Describe the tattoo for me, please. What is this?
So
it was part of your homework, right?
Exactly. Part of my learnings is part of this tattoo. The top of it is a lotus flower because, again, I'm always developing out of the muck and becoming a beautiful flower. And at the bottom is the Sanskrit sign for breathe, which is what we do. We have to breathe. We have to understand what's going on, recognize ourselves and what our body's saying, how we're responding. Again, going back to your 6 pack and how is my audience perceiving me? Take a moment, breathe it in, and then go. So this helps me a lot to remember, just to calm down, breathe, notice, pay attention, use your senses, see what's going on around you, center, learn, and go.
Breathing.
Yes.
You rock. Jayme Alston, I look forward to our next chat. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Russ.
Jayme Alston is the head of people at BloomTech. If you want to find out more about this revolution in technology education, you can go to BloomTech.com. I love that Jayme got a Connection Lab themed tattoo. Talk about artifact creation. Well, yeah, amazing. Listen, that's our show. This is Lab Notes, the Connection Lab podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and for continuing your practice. Remember, you can coach this stuff too. Be transparent about your practice, and others will become curious. Collaborate, co-create. You got this. Remember, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, we have to go together. Go team!
Thank you for listening to Lab Notes, the Connection Lab podcast. For more information about our workshops and executive development programs, you can email us at info@connectionlaboratory.com or go to our website at connectionlaboratory.com.